Crafty friends, it's Jess from jesscrafts.com, and today I wanted to share some new Shimmerz Paints products that are new to me that I have tried recently while making two different cards also featuring Neat and Tangled stamps. So I have a smattering of Shimmerz Paints products. I had seen their wide range of interesting products. I reached out to the company and they sent me a handful of things to give a try. The first thing that I'm exploring here is the Inklings, which is a spray that does not have any shimmer in it. I thought that was interesting because some projects I prefer not to use shimmer because if I donate to hospitals, they prefer not to have shimmer. So I liked that option, but there's also a spray that does have shimmer in it, and that's the Vibez, which is this blue spray I'm going to use. And when you're mixing in these sprays, I recommend, and I don't always do this, but it's the better idea, is to kind of just rub the bottle back and forth in between your hands, sort of roll it back and forth between your palms, rather than shaking it. Shaking it can clog the bottle, and I did recently have a big problem with that in the latest Hero Arts kit, where I shook the bottle, clogged it, and could never recover it. But I will, since I did accidentally shake that Vibez bottle, I'm going to hold it off to the side and explore some other stuff while I wait for that to settle. I am looking at the Creameez Let Us Get Together, and it's a watercolor that you can activate with water and then paint on. And I believe the Creameez is the one that does not have shimmer, and then there is the shimmering watercolors, which are the Inklings. So I kind of like the idea that they have a line with shimmer and a line without to fit a variety of tastes. And so here I'm going to put down the Inklings, which again is that shimmer watercolor, that sort of pearlescent look. It's not glitter in the sense that it's coming off in your hands, but more just, again, I guess a pearlescent is the best way for me to describe it. It has a little shine, catches the light, which provides an interesting look. And they both are pretty vibrant in color, which I also appreciated in general about Shimmerz Paints. All of the products that I used had a pretty bright, vibrant color. Nothing was dull, and all of the palette, the color choices are, again, really bright, fun, happy colors, which works well for me. But there are a handful of neutrals as well, but not so many of the more muted colors like, forest greens and that kind of thing. However, I do encourage you to check out their selection. I am also using the Shimmerz paint, which already has liquid mixed into it, so you don't have to add any water and can be kind of just painted on straight from the little pot, I guess is the best way to describe it. It is similar to watercolor in the sense that it is translucent unless you layer it on. It's not a thick acrylic type of paint. And that is, again, the Shimmerz paint. Finally, one of the products that I was most excited to try was the Dazzlers, which is a smooth, shimmering, dimensional paste. I really enjoy working with stencils, and putting paste through them to add a little bit of 3D texture is always fun. So I scooped some out with a palette knife, and now I'm trying to dab some on with a makeup sponge to give you kind of the two different effects that you can do. If you want a thinner layer, dabbing on with a makeup sponge is great. If you want a thick, really textured, then I suggest the palette knife. So I'm going to come back to the Vibez now that let it settle a bit, and I'm going to rub it between my palms instead of shaking the bottle, because again, that distributes the shimmer powder without clogging your bottle. And if your bottle is clogged, you're going to get really frustrated and try to transfer it over, and then that in of itself is frustrating. So just try to heed the warning on the bottle, and I appreciate that the bottle tells you to do that. Whereas with the Hero Arts kit that I received recently, there was no mention that you shouldn't do that. You shouldn't shake it. But this one does let you know not to shake it. So here I'm ready to actually start some cards now that I've played with all the products, kind of seen what they did. And I like to do that when I receive new products. I like to experiment with them a little bit, just spray them on some stuff, just, play with them and get that idea of how does this product work before I go right to a card. I have spritzed on the Colorings, which is again a non-shimmer spray, and I am going to layer it up with some of the other products, because even though this time I am making projects, I'm generally still testing out the products and seeing what they do, and I'm kind of prepared for this background maybe not to be my favorite background, and that's totally okay. I'll learn something about how the products work in the process of making the cards. So I spritzed the Vibez spray once I added the stencil. I laid the stencil down over the pink paper that I had created with the colorings. I sprayed the Vibe through it, and this is all being done on watercolor paper just so it can stand up to the amount of spray that I'm going to be experimenting and the amount of mediums that I'm going to be putting on it. Then I pressed another piece of watercolor paper onto the wet stencil, and that was to try to, take advantage of the spray and just see something else that it could do. I think that that's always a fun thing to do if you're going to go through all the trouble of inking through a stencil. Trying to get an impression off of that leftover ink that's kind of sitting on top of the stencil can be fun. I decided to then work with the Dazzlers because, like I said, that was my personal favorite, the most exciting product for me. So I am smoothing out some of the Dazzlers with a palette knife here on the blue and white card. And I'm being kind of messy and imprecise with it because, again, I'm having a play with the products. I want to take advantage of the messy, artsy nature of them. And so I'm trying not to overthink things. And I just sort of created a focal point because I know that eventually I am going to be putting a critter on this card. Then I decided to give a slightly different look. I wanted something thick on the first card, and then I thought, well, let me see what it looks like if you spread it much thinner. So I'm going to take the palette knife and kind of do more of like a squeegee effect with it and really wipe a very thin layer across. You could also try this with the makeup sponge like I showed earlier. It would give a slightly different texture because you would be doing a dabbing, pouncing motion where I'm doing a swiping motion here. But I encourage you to try both ways, see what you like, see how you can have fun with these products, and test them out in a variety of ways so that even if you liked one way in the future, you could try another and enjoy that as well. As you can see, I'm using a lot of scrap paper here because I'm working with these messy mediums. I don't want to ruin the one sheet that I'm working on. However, if I wasn't filming, I'd just work on my Ranger craft sheet because that would clean up really, really easily. Any silicone craft sheet would work just as well. A silicone baking sheet would work. Sometimes those are cheaper than the craft sheets. I stamped these critters. They are from the Neat and Tangled Prehistoric set onto some watercolor paper because I knew I wanted to also play with the watercolors again. I sort of tested them out on that swatch at the beginning. And I thought, well, since there was green and purple, that kind of reminded me of a dinosaur. That would be the easiest critter to color. And I don't know how many of you remember Barney, the purple dinosaur. It was a kids program, but I grew up in the age of Barney. And so green and purple kind of always remind me of dinosaurs for that reason, because that's the color that he was. But I decided to mix it up, and I used the green for the base so that it's not a mostly purple dinosaur. But another reason I chose the green for the base was because when you're coloring and you have small details like these spots on the dinosaur, I always recommend using a lighter color, coloring right over the spots, and then coming in with a darker color to color the elements like the spots, because then you don't have to worry about tracing around each little spot and not getting any paint inside of it, because the darker color is just going to cover up whatever you didn't perfectly go around the first time. However, because they're watercolors, they will sort of mix together. So you're not going to see the pure purple color on the dinosaur spots. It's going to mix a little bit with the green. I'm personally okay with that. I think it's worth it to save the amount of time that it takes you to sort of very fussy color around all of the little spots. But I am going to use the pure purple here on the speech bubbles just so that you can see what it looks like, and also tying the speech bubbles into the dinosaurs since there won't be purple in the other parts of the card. I'm going to go back to those pink and blue card bases. I'm going to, again, as I mentioned, add the little spots, and using this darker color, but also not adding too much water, because with watercolors, the more water you add, the more translucent it is and the lighter the color is. Since I do want it to try to cover up the green, I am going to try to add less water and make it a thicker paint. Then I'm ready to stamp the sentiment from the same stamp set right onto those speech bubbles. They weren't facing the ideal way, so I just sort of shifted them on their side, which might look a little bit funny, but I thought it made more sense for the dinosaur to look like he is talking out of the speech bubble than the speech bubble to be pointing in the wrong direction. So it's a little funny on its side, but it works. I'm going to glue down my dino and my speech bubble, which I use my scan and cut to cut out, but you could also use the coordinating dies, of course. And I'm going to use a really strong adhesive for a few reasons. Watercolor paper is a little bit thicker, so it needs, so it's a little bit heavier, and I want it to hold on well, but also because the Dazzlers created just a touch of lumpiness, as you will with mixed media products, underneath, and so since it's not going to lay perfectly flat and flush to the card, it's good to have a nice strong adhesive. So once I get my dinos and my speech bubbles added, that's going to be pretty much it for these two cards. I really had a fun time playing with these new products from Shimmerz Paints. And as mentioned before, there will be a link in the video description so you can check them out and try some yourself. I think that they had a fun range of products and a fun range of colors. So if you are interested in the other products I use, they'll also be linked in the video description below. And I would love to get a thumbs up if you liked the video, or subscribe to my channel for more crafting tutorials. Thank you so much for watching. Have an awesome day. Bye.